Good evening. It's Wednesday, December 11th, 2024. It's the monthly journal meeting of the Culver City Democratic Club. And we are very happy to have with us tonight a presentation by Emily Sulzer from the Center for the Study of Political Graphics. They're located on Sepulveda in Culver City at a building many of us know as the Peace Center. I was happy to reacquaint myself with them at the annual Alea's Subject Archives Bazaar, which is a fantastic event that everyone should put on their calendar as soon as they announce next year's dates. Culver City was very well represented at that event. The Historical Society and the Venda and the Center for Land Use Interpretation were all there. There might have been another group or two that I couldn't think of, but so uh, I was hoping that we would be able to uh, have a sort of lighter and more abstract session because I was hoping for different things to happen in the November election, but here we are, and we'll have plenty to do. That's more praxis oriented next year. So let me spotlight you, Emily, and you should be able to share screen, and the floor is yours. Thanks for being here.
All right, I'm going to share my screen. Slideshow. But yeah, thank you so much for attending and for having me. 1 second. I'm just like cycling through my slides. That was not what I meant to do. All right, we're in business. Thank you so much for attending and bearing with me. I'm Emily Sulzer. I'm the Archives Director at the Center for the Study of Political Graphics. We are located in Culver City at the intersection of Venice and Sepulveda in the former Peace Center building. And yeah, I've been asked to give a talk about the center, also known as CSPG, and just about the poster collection and the work that we do. The Center for the Study of Political Graphics, in addition to being a very long name, it's an archive. It's a small organization with a big collection of over 90,000 human rights and protest posters. The center basically consists of two adjoining office suites that are climate controlled, and we keep all the posters here at this facility, mostly stored in just metal flat file drawers and archival folders. And we sort the posters by subject, by artist, or by the country that it's about. As the archives director, it's my job to take care of these human rights and protest posters and make sure that the public have access to them for research purposes. I'm not the person who collected these posters necessarily or did most of the research. I'm mainly in charge of their care, and that includes sort of supervising the archivists, tracking the posters that are donated to the archive, maintaining a catalog of posters, maintaining the space where the posters are stored, and scheduling research appointments and group tours. So at the center, basically, we preserve these human rights and protest posters, we catalog them, we digitize them, and we have researchers from all over the world that come and study them. So you may be asking yourself, why have a center for the study of political graphics? Well, we're currently living at a dangerous time in history. I'm sure you're very aware. There's racism, there's inequality, war, genocide, and we are feeling the effects of climate change. And with this new president, it's only going to get worse. In this country, it feels like the systems that were supposed to help us have failed in really big ways. So I'm here to tell you that, right now, today is an important time to create, experience, and utilize art. We need change, and art and socio-political change are deeply connected. For generations, activists have used art as a tool for political organizing. CSPG's collection of protest posters really showcases art's role in political organizing. We have the largest collection in the United States of post World War II political posters. We have posters from all over the world. Approximately 40% of our collection is international, although the majority of the posters that we have are 60s to the present, 1960s to the present, though we do have some things that are older. So tonight, I'm just going to share some posters that the center has collected over the years that have been critical for political organizing. War is not healthy for children and other living things. This was the most reproduced poster during the Vietnam War period. It was made by an activist group of mothers called Another Mother for Peace that formed in Beverly Hills. The group started in 1967 to protest the Vietnam War, because, of course, there were children being bombed and killed, and these mothers did not want their children to grow up to be soldiers. The actual artwork, the design, was made by Lorraine Schneider, who actually created the graphic for a design contest at Pratt Art Institute in New York. This is her original design. It's 2 by 2 inches, so we have a copy of it. Ms. Schneider did not win the competition, but she did wind up donating the logo to this group, Another Mother for Peace. Another Mother for Peace also had an art director named Gerda Katz. She incorporated the logo into posters, flyers, buttons, stickers, jewelry, and greeting cards. Another Mother's first protest action was in 1967. They actually made Mother's Day cards with this artwork and sent it to members of Congress to protest the war. So this is the front and the inside of the card. It says, "For my Mother's Day gift this year, I don't want candy or flowers. I want an end to war." And they sent over 200,000 of these cards to members of Congress. I'll show you another poster opposing the Vietnam War. Vietnam Vencera, Vietnam shall win, in different languages. The graphic on it comes from a painting of the Vietnamese communist leader Ho Chi Minh. The artwork was actually commissioned by the Cuban government. The Cuban government obviously supported the Northern Vietnamese because they were both communists. The US Army were fighting the Northern Vietnamese because it was the Cold War. The Cubans sent this artist, Rene Medeiros, to Vietnam to paint scenes from the war, and his paintings were reproduced as posters and shown all over the world. This one was printed by Glad Day Press in Ithaca, New York. They were a radical print shop that originated from a local peace center. And they actually sold the poster to raise money for medical aid in Indochina. So it really shows that there was an international movement against US involvement in Vietnam. And the posters were actually used to help the Vietnamese. I'll shift for a second to an earlier poster from 1932 for disarmament. There was a disarmament movement that emerged in Europe after World War I, as World War I was the war to end all wars. It was very brutal. The designer, Jean Carlu, created a nonprofit, which translates to the Graphic Office of Propaganda for Peace. And this group was supposed to help preserve peace in Europe. And this was the first poster that he produced for the agency. And if you know anything about Soviet constructivist art, you can definitely see some influence from it. There's these two triangles in the middle, and this large circle are just very emphasized. The entire poster is centered around these shapes. So I'm going back to the 60s. I'll go back to the 60s a lot. There was not only a war going on, but also movements for racial justice. Um, this poster is against police brutality and the murder of Black people in Los Angeles. It was made by Community Alert Patrol, which was a group that formed after the Watts Uprising in 1965, sometimes called the Watts Riots. The group monitored and photographed police interactions with the public. So this poster is trying to recruit people to do that. So you might notice there are two Black Panthers pictured at the bottom of the poster. This poster actually predates the capital B Black Panther Party by a couple of months. A Panther graphic was first used for Black liberation by a group called the Lowndes County Freedom Organization, and they started using it in January 1966 in Alabama. This poster was printed in August in Los Angeles, and then the capital B Black Panther Party was founded in Oakland in October of 1966. And you may know that the graphic of the panther, the logo of the panther, eventually became very widely associated with the Black Panther Party. Community Alert Patrol, this LA group, they were not armed resistors like the Black Panther Party. The Black Panthers were a self-defense group and carried rifles. The Community Alert Patrol did not carry weapons. They only carried cameras to monitor police interactions and sort of surveil the police. This is a poster from 1970 that's also about racial justice. It has the first couple of lines from the Pledge of Allegiance on top. The photo was originally for an advertisement for a docuseries called Of Black America that aired on CBS News in 1968 in the summer after the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. So the model is sort of made to look like Dr. King. He has a mustache and is wearing a suit. In 1970, the photo was made into this poster with the text added. The photographer, Ron Borowski, said in the early 2000s, quote, "The image is still embedded in the public's mind. Whenever I show the photo, the response is always, oh, I remember that. The message of the poster is still significant today as Black Americans continue to struggle." I'll jump ahead now to another poster, this time from the 90s, that also has a connection to advertising. The Health Project Center was a nonprofit. They received money from the state of California to fund public education about the health dangers of smoking cigarettes. Now, this was the 1990s, so the group was up against very aggressive advertising campaigns by big tobacco corporations. The Health Project Center actually connected with two graphic artists who were working at an ad agency where a big tobacco company was their client. These artists were actually unhappy with their day jobs. They were unhappy they had to make art promoting cigarettes. And so they agreed to make an anti smoking design if their identities were kept confidential. And this is their design. It parodies the Camel brand cigarettes package. The poster attracted some local attention in California and eventually nationwide attention, and other anti tobacco campaigns in other states ordered the poster from Health Project Center so they could use it in their own campaigns. Boycott grapes. So there was a grape boycott that started in 1965 that led to the formation of the United Farm Workers Union in 1966, co-founded by Cesar Chavez and Dolores Huerta. Because of that original boycott, by 1970, 85% of grape growers signed contracts with United Farm Workers. So this poster is from when the grape boycott actually resumed in 1973 because grape growers had signed contracts with the Teamsters Union instead of the United Farm Workers. The Aztec figure in the middle is sort of the focal point and alludes to the rich heritage of the mostly Mexican immigrant farm workers. And the artist, Javier Viramontes, said that the liquid coming from the grapes that he's holding, they symbolize the blood and sweat of the farm workers. He was trying to emphasize how hard they work. He originally made a small silkscreen printed run of 100 copies of this design. United Farm Workers eventually printed thousands more copies of their own offset edition, which is what I'm showing you right now. This is a poster from another boycott movement. This time it's part of the international boycott of South African goods because of the apartheid regime. That movement sort of started in the 60s, but persisted until the apartheid regime fell in the 90s. Nelson Mandela was elected president in 1994. The movement gained traction in the UK in particular because there were South African exiles living in London, including the president of the African National Congress, Oliver Tambo. The bullet holes and the blood that are shown on the fruit and the can are not metaphorical, they're very literal. In 1960, there was a protest in Sharpeville in South Africa. Black South Africans were protesting laws that said they had to carry a special passbook everywhere they went. This restricted people's movements and kept Black and white South Africans segregated. And the police opened fire and shot protesters. They killed 91 people and injured 238, and it was a big turning point in the anti-apartheid movement. Here is another sort of Vietnam War era poster, this time about gay rights. It was made by the Gay Liberation Front, a group that formed after the 1969 Stonewall riots. They were one of the first political groups to call themselves gay. And this poster was actually used at a 1971 Los Angeles protest against police brutality and entrapment of gay men. And homosexuality was illegal then. Police officers would stake out bars, public restrooms, and parks and arrest gay men. This particular protest was peaceful, and they carried this poster across Wilcox Avenue and marched towards the Hollywood police station, and no arrests were made. Also present, but not pictured here, were uniformed neo-Nazi counter-protesters. This is an international poster made in Poland. It features American actor Gary Cooper in the 1952 Western film High Noon. It is encouraging people to vote for Solidaric, spelled like Solidarnosc, but it translates to Solidarity, which was a trade union political party. Instead of a gun, Gary Cooper is holding a ballot that says elections, and below him it says high noon, and then it has the date of the election for June 1989. This was an important election in Poland. You may remember learning that what started World War II was that the Nazis invaded Poland, and then the Soviets defeated them, and then it became the Communist People's Republic of Poland. So the election of 1989 was the first time since the 40s that non-communist party members were able to participate. The design was actually made by an art student named Tomas Sarnecki for an assignment. His teacher called an organizer from Solidarity, and this person came to the school and sort of just took the poster without saying anything to Tomas. And then the next time Tomas saw the poster, there were copies posted all over Warsaw, and this was right before the election. So it turns out that Solidarity had thousands of copies of this printed in Italy, and then they were airdropped, and they had teams post the poster all over the country. And Solidarity won the election, and this started the transition to a more democratic government in Poland. 10 years later, this poster was featured on the cover of a major Polish magazine called Polityka, and they said it was, quote, the poster that changed Polish history. This is the poster that changed American history, or a poster that changed American history, as well as graphic design history. It was designed in 2008 by Shepard Fairey when Barack Obama was running for president. Americans at the time were unhappy with President George Bush because of the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. And in 2007, 2008, you may remember that at the time, it was the worst financial crisis since the Great Depression. So this poster really spoke to people's desire for hope and change for their country. The artist Shepard Fairey connected with Yossi Sargent, who was a media consultant for the Obama campaign, and they sold the poster, but also posted many copies for free. And proceeds from the sales were used to fund printing more posters. And I think this poster helped get Obama elected. Obama getting elected was a big achievement, but we did see that 3 million people were deported under Obama, and that's more people than George W. Bush, more people than under Donald Trump. There were systems that were put in place by Republicans that continued under Obama. And immigration was completely reorganized after the September 11th attacks. ICE, the Immigration's Customs Enforcement, was started in 2002, and it was made part of the Department of Homeland Security. And yeah, this is a poster from the Obama administration, 2012, about immigrant rights. To be fair, this was the same year that Obama did the executive order for DACA, or deferred action for childhood arrivals, which was a real game changer for the undocumented community. But you're likely aware that today it remains doubtful that this program will continue. In this poster, immigration and customs enforcement is remixed as US intimidation and community eradication. The American bald eagle is looking very threatening with handcuffs and a rifle. And in the middle, there are migrants and refugees behind bars underneath the word disappear. And then at the bottom, it says defending the homeland by suppressing wages, dividing workers, and separating families. So this poster really speaks to the damage that ICE had done over the past 10 years in the name of defending the country. No amount of stalling will stop the dams from falling. This poster is from the struggle around the 257-mile long Klamath River, which crosses California and Oregon. The Klamath River is large, and so it has ties to several indigenous nations that were devastated by the invasion of prospectors during the California Gold Rush. In the 1910s, the land around the Klamath River was seized by eminent domain, and several hydroelectric dams were installed in the river. This was bad for indigenous communities because the dams were blocking salmon from their habitat and creating toxic algae blooms. This poster was made by Native artist Amelia Hillman from the Yurok Nation. She was part of the Undam the Klamath movement and worked for the environmental department for the tribe. So the Yurok, Karuk, and Hupa tribes worked together to fight for the removal of these dams. And as a result of their hard work, this past August, the US actually concluded this dam removal. And it was the largest dam removal project in US history. Also, somewhat related, during this past summer, the state of California returned over 2,800 acres of land near the Klamath River back to the Shasta Indian Nation. And it was one of the largest land returns in California history. So it was a long fight. This poster's from Wisconsin. It has a badger because Wisconsin is known as the Badger State. And the badger is hunting a rat who represents their former governor, Scott Walker. In February 2011, there was a 2-week occupation of the Wisconsin Capitol building in Madison. And then there were satellite protests in other parts of the state. They were protesting against what was called the Wisconsin Budget Repair Bill, which did unfortunately end up passing. And the issue at hand was these labor rights. The law, among other things, limited collective bargaining rights for most public employees in Wisconsin. The justification being that it would help the state's budget deficit. So the artist Nicholas Lampert silkscreened hundreds of these posters and gave them away for free. He is part of an international artist cooperative called Just Seeds. Their work is great, and they have a webpage featuring free downloadable protest graphics that people can print at home to make their own posters. So he put his design on the Just Seeds website and actually saw other people in Wisconsin who he didn't know that were printing the graphic on posters and t-shirts. So he was able to use the internet to share the design. I think some people claim that print is dead. Why do we need printed posters if we have social media to share political graphics? I think sharing political graphics online is helpful to get conversations going. It was people who were raised in the age of the internet that came up with the slogans, "We are the 99%, Me Too, Black Lives Matter." But on social media, it's very easy to scroll past an image. There is so much content. So it has its limits. You can't hold up a graphic on your phone or on your laptop screen at a demonstration. The printed posters are still important because they have a physical presence. They can be put up in the built environment. Someone, a member of the public, will see a political poster just as they are going about their normal day. A printed poster can expose a person to new political ideas that they wouldn't have otherwise encountered, or it could even just simply make them ask a question like, why is this here? What is this about? I think a lot of people, they walk around in a political bubble, only interacting with people that share their opinions in politics. But the printed poster has the power to break through that bubble. This poster is credited with starting the Occupy Wall Street movement in 2011. It was actually put out by a Canadian magazine, Adbusters. They proposed an occupation of Wall Street to protest corporate influence on elections, wealth inequality, and the sort of lack of consequences for those corporations that brought about that global economic crisis. The poster features a ballet dancer on top of the Charging Bull statue from the financial district in New York City. And, it asks, what is our one demand? Hashtag Occupy Wall Street. And it tells people to come on September 17th and bring a tent. You may remember that the Occupy movement grew and it went beyond Wall Street. People occupied college campuses and Capitol buildings all over the country. The movement has died down a bit, but it had an impact. People are still debating the effectiveness of the Occupy movement, and many credit it with helping change the mainstream political conversation about campaign finance and wealth inequality. So the posters I've shown have been pretty leftist, pretty radical, which is what the vast majority of our collection is. That said, at CSPG, it was decided a long time ago that there wouldn't be a political litmus test for what is added to the archive. This is sort of to acknowledge that the left is not a monolith. For example, communists and anarchists don't agree. And there's also, militants versus pacifists on the left. And it's important to build broad coalitions. If they had established the center as a Trotskyist archive or a Maoist archive, it would have alienated people. We believe at the center that even if you disagree with a poster, it is a piece of history and we can learn something from it. I'm just going to quickly cycle through some electoral posters from CSPG's collection that I thought would possibly be interesting to you, mostly about presidents. We had an exhibition of satirical presidential posters, and I tried to avoid the traditional sort of candidate yard signs with just a name and a year, which we have a lot of, but they can get boring. So I'm just trying to show you something a little more visually interesting. So I ended with an anti-Kamala. If any of you have any pro-Kamala posters, we'd love to have you donate them to the archive. CSPG's collection has become so vast because there wasn't aesthetic criteria for what they agreed to collect. They would accept any poster as long as it had political content and no matter what condition it was in, like physically. The collection includes artists, work by artists on every end of the spectrum, from self-taught to student to emerging to world-renowned. And protest posters have historically been overlooked, both as artwork and as historical documents of political struggles. One reason is that few copies survive. Protest posters are usually printed quickly for an urgent protest. They are often pasted or taped up in public spaces, thrown away after the demonstration, or they deteriorate because they were printed on cheap paper. Also, sometimes protest posters can be destroyed by the opposition before someone gets a chance to save them. A poster's survival can sometimes depend on the political climate. On the left, I'm showing a scene. There was a coup d'etat in Chile in 1973 against the socialist government. They established a military junta, and they suppressed left-wing movements. The soldiers are burning books and a poster. The poster is called America Despierta, America Wake Up. There is a copy in CSPG's collection. When I first started working at CSPG, there were no known copies of this poster actually in Chile. It wasn't until 2021 that a Chilean museum was actually able to acquire one. You may also remember the Palestinian solidarity encampments on college campuses that were in the news earlier this year. Some students were arrested, including some students that interned for me at CSPG. Some of the camps were broken up by police, and the art that the students left behind was thrown in the trash. I'm not suggesting that this event is even remotely similar to Chile. It's a different time, different country. I'm simply trying to illustrate that there are situations where political posters would be disposed of. The CSPG archive started as a grassroots effort. With a few exceptions, the posters came to the archive by donations from everyday people. Organizers, artists, activists, professors, bookstores, print shops, and community groups. It became an independent nonprofit with paid staff. It's not associated with a larger institution. And so the fact that the archive has endured for 35 years is a great accomplishment. At CSPG, we continue to collect historical and contemporary protest posters. We catalog them, we digitize them, and we have researchers from all over the world to come and study them. CSPG also uses the archive as the basis for poster exhibitions. The center has mounted dozens of poster exhibitions at over 400 different venues, nationally and internationally. We can make exhibitions for a lot of different contexts. On the top right, you'll see some Cuban posters at a more traditional museum. On the bottom right is a scene from an exhibition at a community center and food court. And on the left is posters against prison at an outdoor festival. We usually make exhibits about a single topic. So we have an exhibition about immigration. We have an exhibition against the death penalty. We have an exhibition about affordable housing. We have one about police violence and many more. For the two pictures on the bottom, the community center and the outdoor festival, we use reproductions of the posters, not vintage originals. At museums, we will exhibit the originals. The biggest priority for the archive right now is digitizing the collection. For most of CSPG's history, we sent posters to an outside vendor to be photographed. In January 2022, we set up a digitization studio and hired additional archivists to photograph the posters on site. And they've actually digitized over 50,000 posters since we started this project. All of this digitization and photography is in service of putting the posters online on a collection's website so that the public can freely search and access the collection. And this year, actually a month ago, we launched a new collections website, which currently has 20,000 posters cataloged on the website that people can search. And it's an ongoing process to add more posters, but this is very exciting. And now more people than ever can research our posters from anywhere in the world. There's an artist whose work is in the archive. Her name was Corita Kent. She was a Catholic nun in Los Angeles. She made silkscreen posters about peace, which became popular during the Vietnam War. She said that doing and making are acts of hope. So making something, making a poster, is an act of hope. You make a poster and distribute it or tack it up or hold it up at a demonstration. You're just hoping that it will make a change. A piece of art just by itself may not change the world overnight, but you make art because you know it's an important part of the solution. The posters we have are dynamic and colorful and beautiful, but we must always remember that they are responses to unspeakable violence and pain. I'm talking about children getting bombed, police violence, deportation, poverty, incarceration, not being able to afford health care. The posters were made because people didn't have a voice, but they chose to make something and hope anyway. I think that having an archive like CSPG's is also an act of hope. It's hope that ideas like peace, justice, freedom, health, and cooperation can be kept alive for future generations. It's hope that the hard work of political organizing in the past was worth it. Even if people didn't get what they want, it was worth it because people today can learn from the past and be inspired to take action. I've been speaking tonight a lot about the past, but this work is really about the future. It's about changing culture. It's about envisioning a better future. And that's why we continue to archive these posters. So that's my talk. If my talk inspired you and you want to find out more about what CSPG is doing, the best way is to go to politicalgraphics.org and sign up. Tom raised his hand.
Yeah, Emily, I just want to say what a terrific presentation you've made. And it's amazing that you're still in the Peace Center. Can you give us a quick synopsis of why you still are there where others are not? Because you know all the political things that have happened to it.
Yeah. So the Peace Center was started by Aris Anagnos, who was like a Greek freedom fighter and had a connection to a lot of political movements and provided free office space to different political groups. He died. He had actually set up a private foundation so that we could continue, all these groups could continue to be there after he was gone. His son did not share Aris's politics and managed to find a loophole and dismantle the foundation. So it was a bit of a legal battle, but he did manage to do that. So then for about a year and a half, we were paying rent to the Sun,
Mhm.
and then the building was sold,
Right.
and they have agreed to let us stay as long-term tenants. But yeah, we've been paying rent since July 2022. And after not paying rent for so long, it's been a big stretch on our budget.
Yeah. Say something. Yes, that's what we, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Mhm.
Yeah, thank you for a great presentation. We have time for a couple of more questions, if any. Yes, Cynthia, please.
Just a quick one. I can't tell you how much I love your posters. You know, and the part of the history that I remember just gives me chills. Do you collect and keep any other kinds of like campaign ephemera, like buttons and that sort of thing, bumper stickers, or do you know any organization that does that?
We will take bumper stickers, we will take buttons, we will take postcards. We have maybe about like 5,000 buttons, maybe 1,000 or so postcards. So we will take those.
Buttons.
A lot of our focus, and we'll take buttons. A lot of our focus has been on the posters because they just like physically take up so much space. But we are building out a button collection. We have postcards. The one thing we aren't able to take are T-shirts and newspapers. Yeah.
If I could add, UCLA also has an archive of campaign literature, and I'll put a link to that in the chat. Anyone else? Because, you know, I have questions, but I'm sure other. Yes, Kareem.
Thank you for that fantastic presentation. I'm a graphic designer. I just had such a blast. I mean, the Solidarność posters just gave me goosebump. I really love your presentation and the work you do. I'm so emotional. I forgot my question, so let me step back and come back. But it was awesome.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll hold your spot. Disa?
Yes, I heard you say that you do, you know, it's really important thing that you do is to make the collection available for people who are doing research to access, so people can come in person or they can see many of your artifacts online. What about people who are just regular people who would like to visit? And I don't know if you have regular tours or talks and a chance to view, you know, the center and what you are doing in person. Is that something that you are able to offer sometimes?
We can do small group tours if people want to see something specific, just schedule in advance. We don't necessarily have sort of open hours for walk-ins. It's just by appointment. We also do one new exhibition every year, usually in June. We don't have our own exhibition space, so we send our exhibitions to other places. But every year we've had an exhibition at Mercado La Paloma, which is that food court and community center I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
And that's near USC. So every year we have an exhibition there.
And do you ever have an arrangement with the Vende Museum in Culver City to exhibit some of your works?
We've never had an exhibit there. We've loaned some objects. I think maybe the center's done a few projects with them in the past. But yeah, we're definitely like, we know each other. And we'll sometimes, you know, trade posters or trade information.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Kareem?
Yeah. Thank you, Jeff. Yeah, you mentioned you have 20,000 posters available on the website currently, but you're scanning over 50,000 of them. Are you planning to put the whole collection online, or is it just a
Yes.
collection?
Yes, eventually. It's a little bit of a process. You know, you take the pictures and then you have to sort of uh, process the images afterwards and make sure that all the metadata is correct before you put it online. So there's just like a little bit of labor that happens after the pictures are taken. So that's why there's the imbalance. But yeah, the goal is to have everything online.
What are the copyright issue with that collection? Can I download something and reprint it myself, reuse part of it? How does it work? I'm asking that question. The Getty Museum had put like a large collection of images and items online, and they are absolutely copyright free. I wonder if it's the same.
Yeah, it's not a similar thing to that. We're sort of operating on a fair use principle. But we will sort of help people if they need to get things licensed for a project. It really depends on which one you want to use. A lot of things in our collection were not put under copyright. They're in this sort of copyright gray zone. Or sometimes we have no idea who made it. So then it's what's called an orphan work. So it really is kind of a case by case basis. Online donations. Disa's asking, do you accept online donations? What do you mean?
I'm guessing if you can submit
support
PDF.
your work. You know, I'm sad to hear you now have to pay rent, for example. And while someone like me wouldn't be able to donate a massive amount, I'd love to be able to give you a contribution.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you. Yeah, I'm gonna put it in the chat, politicalgraphics.org. And there should be a button to donate. And then our online catalog is collection-politicalgraphics.org. But yeah, we're a 501c3, so all donations are tax deductible.
Great. And Haifa has been waiting, so maybe
Oh, thank you. Hi, Emily. Thank you.
Hi.
I'm just curious if you have any pamphlet, any posters from the Arab Spring, because there was some fantastic ones. And there was a woman, like they showed the Arab world and this beautiful, it's like a woman with long hair, and it was just really nice. I don't know if you have that one. That's my first question. Second question, do you have access to some of the artists that did the posters? Do they come and look at their work? Do they come at other people's work? Look if they're current?
Yeah, I don't know about the Arab Spring specifically. I might have to ask because I haven't
Yeah, because
come to research that lately.
Yeah.
So,
well, some of it is not necessarily posters. Some of it was graffiti, and there were some photos, but they were really social media helped make them famous.
Yeah.
Or infamous, depending. Yeah.
And then you asked if artists see their work in the collection. Yeah, there are some artists who we've received posters from regularly because they want their work in the archive. They just generously donate their work because they want people to see it and they want to get the message out there. It's a really mixed bag in terms of who donates things. Sometimes it's the people that made the poster, the actual artist or the organization. And sometimes it's a person who's like, I don't know, this is a pile of posters my dad had in his basement and I don't know what they are. So everything between that spectrum.
A third question, really quick one. How can I get access to the poster from Chile? Because a dear friend of mine her family got affected by Pinochet directly. They're very related. They work for the Pinochet government and they had to escape to Argentina. And now they're back to Chile. But I want to know, how can I access that so I can give it to her, show it to her maybe on Monday? I'm seeing her on Monday. I'm just curious.
I'll put my email in the chat. Would you mind
Thank you.
with me over email?
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah. I think she'll be really, she's
Yeah.
writing a book about her experience at this point. So it's very interesting.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
So let me go back to Kareem
Thank
for
you.
the last question.
The last question, yes, indeed. The posters you presented are posters that seems to come from any type of grassroots movement. Do you collect any kind of, I will say, official propaganda or official politicians like we have in the US every election? Do you suggest people to send you any type of documentation, like physical documentation or simply PDF? Is there anything of any attempt to collect any type or every type of official design?
Our collecting criteria is as long as it's political and made as a multiple, we will agree to collect it. So yeah, if things are put out by political parties, we will definitely accept it if it is offered to us. Does that answer the first part of your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you. But does it have to be physical, or a PDF will do just, or an image or a photo will do just fine?
We have started collecting digital images. It's challenging because just the amount of content that's out there, that there are new images being seen every single day. I feel like our social media manager has sort of had to, be a little more involved in the archive because she's on social media all the time and sees these digital graphics. But yeah, we will collect digital graphics. We are starting to catalog them. I think at the moment, the physical collection is a priority, partly because of our issues with our tenancy. But yeah, we will collect digital things.
Thank you.
So thank you again for an amazing presentation. And
Thank you so much for having me.
It's really, I think, great to be able to ally ourselves with groups like, or organizations like the Center for Political Graphics and the Actors Gang and Brave New Films and, activist, creative groups in Culver City. So thanks again for being here. And this will be up on YouTube in a day or two. I need to design a title card for it now. Pretty high bar. So thank you again, and I'll stop.
Thank you.
Yeah.
For business meeting.
All right. Carry
Thank
on.
you so much for coming.